Hey, good morning, Michael. How are you today?
Hi, James. Good, thank you.
Hey, just quickly, Michael, I understand that Blue Sky has been involved recently with a nuclear demolition, or job, I guess, involving nuclear dust, potential nuclear dust.
Radiated dust, right?
Radiated dust. There you go. What has been, I guess, a particularly maybe unique challenge with that, or what makes Blue Sky particularly interesting in that field?
Okay, so specifically about this job, so that was the containment was a tent, a large, huge, giant tent, and they needed to bring that whole area under negative pressure. And so you have to suck air out of that containment space so that if there was ever radiated dust in the air, it couldn't leak into the surrounding environment. And obviously the machine doing the sucking, which is Blue Sky in this case, our Gladiator machines, the air that we blow into the environment needs to be filtered. And in fact, there's primary filtration, which is already HEPA quality, and then secondary HEPA filtration. So you've got dual stage filtration to make sure that if anything ever went wrong with a filter, you then had a backup. And so what we're exhausting from those Gladiators then is HEPA filtered air at 99.97 at 0.3 microns, essentially perfectly dust-free air.
Okay. Has there been any particular challenges with that, or are there, like I said, what makes Blue Sky a unique proposition in that?
Okay, so we can mobilize such a filtration machine, we call it the Gladiator, directly to the site. It's essentially plug and play. So it arrives on a roll-off platform, so just a regular roll-off truck can service it, in fact, the type that a dumpster would be used with, and placed anywhere you want. The ducting can then be connected to the structure. You turn the machine on and it runs, and it exhausts right then and there. So it's just plug and play. You essentially drop it off where you want it, put your pipes in, and you're going. And at the end of the project, again, a very unique feature of Blue Sky. At the end of the project, when you've got these dirty filters, they have all this potentially radiated dust. We have the smart box technology, which is essentially the encapsulation of that captured dust and the filters in a box. And so that box will get lifted out of the Blue Sky machine, sent away with the waste from the demolition, so it gets treated and landfilled and whatever they do with it, in the same way as the main parts that they are demolishing and removing from that area. So the filters and everything just get pulled out, dropped in that waste container, and they're off. So getting the machine ready for mobilizing back to us, 10, 15 minutes. No contamination, no people touching anything. Waste is totally encapsulated.
Very cool. Now, with this particular project, is there anything that would make it relevant in other dust collection?
That's a good question. Yes, absolutely. So there are certain hazardous dust types that are generated during all sorts of remediation, construction, or demolition projects. For example, lead paint. Let's say you've got a building where they're doing a remodeling or even a demolition, and there could be a lot of lead in the paint in older buildings. Then that dust would need to be contained within that structure, so you haven't got it bleeding out everywhere. So you bring the whole building or space under negative pressure, and so you're capturing lead-containing dust, which is regulated. Or asbestos, if there was asbestos in the building. You could take an entire building, James, and put it under negative pressure. So imagine you've got a high-rise building. You put Blue Sky into the basement. It would draw through the elevator shaft. So all that negative pressure would be distributed via the elevator shafts. You just open up the elevators, obviously safe them. Make them safe, and then Blue Sky would run in the basement, suck all that air in, continuously filtering it, and then that HEPA filtered air would then be blown back into the building. So that building could be climate controlled and continuously the dust being removed. So that could be lead paint or asbestos. Another example of hazardous contained dust would be hexavalent chrome. If you're fixing rail cars, or there's maybe paint on a bridge that has hexavalent chrome, you'd enclose it, you'd suck all that dust out with Blue Sky, and that dust would be captured on the filters and in that containment, and nobody would ever have to touch the filters or the dust ever. It would simply be taken to the same landfill or waste recycling or disposal treatment as the main remnants of whatever you're disposing.
All right, very cool. Now, saying that though, why BlueSky? I mean, can't just they get any dust collector, bring in and do the same thing?
No. So rental machines typically have banks of large filters that get individually handled, and they are handling methods like double bagging, which are designed to ensure that people get the minimum contamination on themselves and on the environment. They're very, very hard, very, very cumbersome, hard to do filter changes. And in the real world, unless you've had really good training and there's good backup services, double bagging in the field or after a project is very, very, very difficult to enforce, to regulate. And if an accident does happen, a bag tears or a filter drops, you're dealing with potentially a hazmat situation, emergency, there could be health issues. We are the only dust collector in the world, and we have patents on this, where the filters and the dust that you collect are actually encapsulated. So think of inkjet cartridge. In the older technology, you'd have to put ink in and everything, and you'd actually be in contact with ink. But now with the modern technology, you flick out the inkjet cartridge, you put a new one in. It's the same thing with BlueSky. You simply take out the smart box, it's very large, big filters inside. You pull out the smart box, you put a new smart box in. The old one is fully encapsulated, sealed off, transported away. It can then be, emptied, recycled, or just landfill straight. And we're the only guys that have that concept of these modules. They can expand too. So if you need more air, less air, dual stage, you can have HEPA stages, primary stages. You can even have inertial separators in there where the bigger particles are taken out first, then you go into the primary filtration, then the secondary. Again, all contained in these smart boxes. So you never touch the dust, you never see the dust. You never see the dust.
Very interesting. Now, I guess for a sort of tough question, what do you think has been an impediment to, I guess, large-scale adaptation of BlueSky in these hazardous dust types? Why has it become like, oh, this is the only way to do it?
Right. I believe I know it to be we're a new product on the market. So nobody really knows of this idea. When we've introduced it, as you know yourself, James, the reaction has been very favorable. And the second thing is people finding us. The reason for us doing some videos is exactly this, to get the message out there that our technology exists, it can be rented, it can be specified for projects, it's intrinsically safe. Word just needs to get out there.
Very cool. Well, hopefully it'll happen. As I said, it's something that needs to happen for the environment and for the personnel's betterment. So, all right, Michael, thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, James.